Hello, and welcome back to another Youth for Christ Salesforce training video. In this training video, we're going to be walking through the donation entry process and really talking about the back end situation and how workflows are triggered to send electronic receipts and also to update paper receipts and to be able to understand some of those workflow rules, not only to activate, deactivate, but to explain the rules and how they're set up. So I do have to warn that this is a system administrator function. Please consult with your local system admin if you have any questions. So I'm just going to quickly run through and create a donation. So let's pretend Matt Foster gave us a donation. And remember that these workflows do trigger off of what their preferred receipt type is. So remember what this is. Right now it's going to be set to none or blank. We're going to go new donation. You can pick any donation, and the same is true if you use the batch data entry process or if you use click and pledge as well. So we're just going to name this test donation. Give it a quick designation, check number. It's for $50. It's been posted. It's good to know that all gifts have to be posted in order for this workflow to go through as well. Now let's put the date today. And as you can see, your receipt will default to not receipted all the time. So the default methodology to do receipting is things are going to go into a paper receipt. So after you hit save, this is called the creation of a new record. So after you're creating a new record, so the same is true once again if you go to click and pledge, then click and pledge creates the new record, or if you use the batch data entry process and then that creates a new record. It's all basically doing the same thing. So as soon as I hit save, Salesforce recognizes that, boom, there's a new creation of a new record. And there it is. So that is what the workflow is triggered on. And then it's going to look at the different variables to make sure that it's in the right stage. It's going to look back at the Matt Foster record to figure out what was his individual preferred receipt type. So that will also mirror here as well on the donation page. Let me just show that for you real quick. So if I go back to Matt Foster and I change that to paper, I hit save. Now I go back to that donation record. That should update as to that. So it's just a mirror from whoever gave that donation, what their individual preferred receipt type is, just so you can see it there as well. It's also good to note there's some other fields that are going to update with this workflow rule. So things that are going to update are primary contact email as well as receipt email sent. We didn't want to log activity into the donation because that's going to clog up the development cycle and update that last activity field. But we wanted to just do a checkbox. So the workflow, if the individual preferred receipt type is both or electronic, it's going to update that, then it's going to put in here what email that was sent to. So some good little triggers and or actions that you should be aware of as we get into the workflow here. So now we're going to go back into the setup menu. And this is where it becomes a system admin function. So you can either come down here, go to create, workflows and approvals, workflow rules. Otherwise, kind of a nice little function is you can just go up here and type in workflow and it'll just find it there for you. So first where we're going to start is workflow rules. So really in essence what a workflow rule is, it's kind of like an if statement in Excel, or it's basically a rule. So it's evaluating whether something happens or doesn't happen. Then after a rule, what you do is either create a task or an email alert or a field update. So we're doing a series of these two within our YFC donation receipt. Electronic, year-end, both. So I'm going to dive into one of here. And as you can see, mine are deactivated right now. So if it says deactivate, that means it is active. But if it says active, activate, you got to click on that. And certainly it'll turn it active. So as you can see how that switched. And if you need affirmation, just look on the side column there. Oh, sorry, I went a little fast. Look on the side column here and you'll see the checkbox whether it's active or not. Okay, so we have a series of 3 different workflow rules that evaluate that individual's preferred receipt type. Like I said, once again, back on that Matt Foster record, what is their preferred receipt type? Let's go back to Matt just to refresh. What's their preferred receipt type here in order to trigger this rule? So I'm just going to read through the rule and how it's been created. So this is just evaluating both or blank. So if that individual preferred receipt type is both or blank, then it's going to trigger this workflow. So if receipt type is both or blank, sends an email and sets email receipt sent field, but doesn't set any other receipt fields. So this is the rule criteria. So it's looking at the opportunity object, and this is triggering, first I should say, on the opportunity. So whenever evaluate the rule, whenever a record is created. So remember when I hit save and I said you're saving this donation? Well, it's creating a new record. So that's what it means by create a record. So the rule criteria, basically what that means is this is what it's looking at to be able to trigger. So the opportunity stage has to equal to posted. Remember, once again, back in that donation record, you should know what posted is. That's the stage here. Next, what it's looking at, so and, it's got to have both. Individual preferred receipt type equals both or equals null, so blank, right? So both or blank. So hopefully that makes good enough sense there. And opportunity receipt is not equal to do not receipt, or receipted for that matter. Because if you're in here and you're entering this donation and you say, you know, do not receipt or receipted, we don't want this workflow to trigger. We just want it to, you know, honor your wishes over the not receipted category. Hopefully that makes some sense. And then primary contact is not equal to blank. So it's also evaluating to make sure that, you know, there's actually an email address there. So that's the rule. So based on all that criteria, if everything fits, then it's going to start to do these workflow actions. And these are immediate. You can set time delays. We have seen some issues in time delays just because it's kind of hard to track when things are happening and how they're happening. But these are immediate actions. So we're going to dive into the actions. So basically the rule is saying if this happens, if an opportunity record, when it's created, initially created, all these criteria meet, then workflow rule do all this stuff. So that's what it's doing. So first it's sending an email alert. So it's going to go and trigger off our email. So we can currently hit edit, and you'll see this should make some sense. You just had to give it a quick name, the email template. This should be your general Youth for Christ email template. I'll just open this here. Make sure everyone's following. Sorry, having a little issue opening it, but that's your email template that you should have created there. And then what it's looking for is on the opportunity is the recipients to be the primary contact email. Hopefully that makes sense. This is also, you can set the from the current user, or you could set an organization default from address, and you can do that as well. So I'm going to cancel out of that. So that's the first workflow rule, workflow action on this rule. Second, it's going to set the primary contact email on that opportunity object. So what it's going to do is go ahead and set the, based on this formula, so it gets into some formulas in Salesforce. So it's looking at the one-to-one contacts email. Got to know a little bit about the way Salesforce is structured to do this, but it's setting the opportunity primary contact email. So basically what that's doing is setting the primary contact email here to this person's email, if this is triggered, right? So it's got to be blank or both. So we'll go back, another field update. So send receipt email sent, or set receipt email sent. So on the opportunity, receipt email sent, checkbox, go ahead and check it. So this is actually used by two different rules, so you don't always have to create different actions. You can assign the same actions to the different rules there, which is kind of nice. You don't have to duplicate efforts. So what that's doing is just, if that criteria is true, go ahead and check this box. Let's go back here. We'll look at one more. So set to not receipted. So the important part about this is that we want to make sure that it stays as not receipted, because if it stays as not receipted, what it's going to do then is go into your receipts to be mailed report, so then you can export that into Excel, do your mail merge, and then come back in and update. But we just want to make sure that that is staying in that criteria. So that's what this is doing. So it's setting the receipt, question mark, into not receipted. Might be a little redundant on this one, but we just want to make sure that that stays that way, because it's both or blank. So basically we're treating blank. So on someone's donation or an individual account, if their individual preferred receipt type is blank, preferred receipt type is blank, we want to honor that as none. So we don't want to just assume that this person doesn't want paper emails or paper receipts anymore, but rather they want both. Okay, so that's a really big time general overview of workflows, but if you understood that to a decent T, you're going to be well on your way to be able to use these and use them pretty well. So once again, workflow rules, it's a rule to evaluate criteria that's happening, and then the actions, which is flow, approval process, tasks, email alerts, field updates, all these different things are actions that happen based on this criteria being met. So let me show one more. Let's jump into the year-end only, just to give you another idea. So year-end only, so we're making the assumption that everyone's going to do a year-to-date or end-of-year receipt letter, right? So end of the year, everybody that's giving you anything, you send something out to them. So if someone's preference is year-end only, so year-end only, we just want to set it to do not receipt. So every donation that comes in, every time a new opportunity, so remember opportunity is the exact same thing as donation, is created, and the stage on the opportunity equals posted, and receipt type, individual preferred receipt type equals year-end only, and receipt is not equal to do not receipt, because you don't need to trigger it if it's already set there. That all it's going to do is set the receipt field, receipt question mark field, to do not receipt. So that's just going to opt it out of everything and be able to be in this do not receipt status. Basically is going to trigger you to do nothing. No electronic, no paper receipts. So hopefully this is making some sense. While we're going through it, why don't I just go through the last workflow rule so that you can understand the just electronic as well. Electronic is about the same as both. The only variable to the both is that it's going to change it, instead of to not receipted, it's going to mark it as receipted. So really just about the same criteria, except is looking at electronic and that individual preferred receipt type. It's making sure it doesn't say do not receipt or receipted, based on your variable of entering the donation if you put that there. And then what it's going to do is on the receipt question mark field on the opportunity page, it's going to mark it as receipted. Because if it's marked as receipted and this receipt email is checked, so it would look something like this. The receipt email would be checked, and then there would be an email address down here. Go hit save. So that's literally what the workflow does. Workflows override fields and update things, but that electronic workflow, what it's going to do is set it to receipted. Going to check, yep, email was sent. That's the email it got sent to, and a good checks and balance that way. Because if it's in receipted status, it's not going to show up again on your report to be able to export and do your mail merge for your paper receipts. So hopefully this is a good help. You may want to rewatch this video a few times. Workflow rules and workflow actions are a bit difficult to get your hands around initially because of the sometimes complex variables. So hopefully this did make some sense. You know, setting these rule criteria, you definitely want to test and test and test before you activate something, and hopefully this will help your journey with Salesforce. Thanks.